Well, I can't say I'm surprised. How's it going, everybody? This is Phil, and I have seen The Rise of Skywalker, and man, what a mess. I mean, this movie, it is just, it's all over the place. I mean, right from the very beginning, it starts off, and it's like you're just jumping around constantly from scene to scene. There doesn't just seem to be a natural flow to the way that the events of the movie are unfolding, or we go from Kylo Ren. I mean, right in the very beginning, and this is going to be spoilers in this review, so just so you're aware. Right in the beginning, Kylo Ren, he encounters the Emperor. I mean, you thought this would be something that he would work his way towards, and he would end up finding him in the end. Like, what's going on here? Where are these transmissions coming from? Who's the one pulling all the strings? It's like, no, right in the beginning, it's like, hey, here's Palpatine. And Palpatine sucks. He sucks in this movie. I mean, we've had Emperor Palpatine, in episode 1, 2, 3. We get an appearance in episode 5. He's the big bad in episode 6. And somehow he kind of resembles Emperor Palpatine in this, but he doesn't quite look like Emperor Palpatine, but he does resemble Emperor Palpatine. I mean, it's just kind of like weird what they did with the makeup. Like, I don't understand it. And the fact that he's even still alive in this movie, first of all, it undermines the whole entire story of Anakin Skywalker and his sacrifice, and Luke's heroic last stand, and the big standoff that they had at the end of Return of the Jedi. It just undermines that whole entire thing. And the fact that he even survived, and they don't explain, or they don't go into any kind of way of how he would do that. Like, how is this possible? Is he a clone? Or was the Palpatine that they encountered in Return of the Jedi, was he a clone? Which none of that really fucking matters anyway, because he's back, right? So, but in the end, like, when you go into this facility, you see like there's a bunch of Snokes. It appears to be in like a jar, like a formaldehyde jar. Like they were breeding Snokes for use as his puppeteering act that he had going on to manipulate Kylo Ren. But how is Palpatine here? I mean, he blew up, and that Death Star was blown. I mean, blown to pieces. I mean, you got to imagine that's some kind of a nuclear reaction that takes place when they blow the core of that Death Star. How is it possible? If you look in the movies, and it's completely turned to atoms. I mean, it's destroyed. So not only did he get thrown down this chasm, which he probably was incinerated, because there's a huge blast that flies up as a result of that. But then on top of that, the Death Star gets destroyed, it gets blown apart, and then we have chunks of the Death Star that show up, remnants of it on Endor, and it's like, how is that even possible? like nothing. Everything is just kind of like, fuck it. We'll just put it on screen, and we'll do whatever we got to do to get out of here as fast as we possibly can. Like, and that's what it felt like. It felt like a rush job. The beginning of the movie, it's rushing around from point to point. They gotta find this MacGuffin, and then I'll take them over to this MacGuffin. Like they're looking for a wayfinder, but then you got to find the knife, and the knife will get you to the wayfinder, and then you find the wayfinder. But before you find the wayfinder, there's inscriptions on the knife. So, but 3PO can read it, but he's not allowed to say what it says. So then you got to find somebody else, and it's just like from point to point to point to point, and it never really feels like. It just feels like everyone's just running around. As far as the characters, I mean, it's just, first of all, Rey is like super Rey. I mean, if she was perfect in the first 2 movies and you had issues with that, like, you're gonna hate her here. If you're a Rey fan, then this movie's all for you. I mean, you're gonna love the shit out of her, because she can do just about anything she wants to do in this movie, and then some. And it's kind of funny because force healing is like a big thing in this movie. I mean, it just keeps coming back and back. And they released the episode 7 of The Mandalorian. There's a spoiler here for that as well. So if you haven't seen episode 7, you might want to tune out for the next 30 seconds or so. But in that episode 7, you see little baby Yoda, and he has force healing abilities. And I almost get the feeling like they released that episode early just so fans of that show who don't have an issue with Baby Yoda and his force abilities, then they wouldn't have issues with Rey and her force abilities over here. It's almost like they got that in just to like escape any kind of ridicule. But I mean, she's using this ability, and it goes well beyond just healing ability. I mean, she's literally bringing people back to life, and this was a whole thing in the prequel trilogy where it's just Darth Plagueis and Palpatine uses that to manipulate Anakin, and if Palpatine is struggling to find how to bring people back to life, and it's something that drives Anakin, and it creates his fall to the dark side, and he can't figure out how to do it. And Rey just kind of like, she picks up a couple of books and she reads the Jedi text, this ancient Jedi text, and it's just kind of like, oh yeah, I can bring people back to life. I read the instructions. It says it right here. It's just like, what the fuck are we doing with this movie? Or like, we're just undermining everything that came before. And I think that's the biggest problem, is just like, you bring back Palpatine and you invalidate Vader. You invalidate motivations from characters in the prequels. You return to the Death Star, and it's kind of like, well, no, it got blown up, but it really didn't get blown up. And it's just like everything it does, it kind of just does it. It throws everything at the screen to kind of trick people into thinking that it's good, because it's like, hey, remember this, remember that, and it's fan service. It's fan service turned up to like 11. And for me, there are certain scenes in this movie where when Lando Calrissian shows up, that kind of hit me in the feels. But because I'm seeing Lando and I'm seeing Billy D. Williams play that character once again live on screen, so that I got emotional about, because I love the character from the original trilogy, and in that moment I separated him out from this whole entire trilogy, and I'm just watching Lando and Lando's charisma and Lando's swagger, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's right, he's a part of this movie. When Princess Leia, General Leia, she dies, and then they come back to the planet, and it's Poe and it's Finn and it's Chewie, and they're going to see the general, and then that lady, she's like, oh, she's gone, and then the camera shows Chewie, and he just starts crying and roaring, and he drops to his knees. Like, in that moment, like, I felt bad for the character Chewie, because not because of this trilogy, but because of the original trilogy and the bond that those characters had. And those moments are put in here specifically to manipulate the fans, to say, hey, look, this is these are the ties to the original trilogy, because they've tried to tell us that wasn't what they wanted, right? They wanted to kill the past and let it die, and now this movie is saying, no, please come back. We don't want that. We want the past. We want you to remember the past, and not only that, we want you to try to remember it again and again, and come back and see this movie again and again. And a lot of people aren't even going to go see it for the first time, and that's the bed that Disney made, and now they have to lie in it. And a lot of fans aren't going to be tricked by that, because that was something that we thought in the very beginning with The Force Awakens, when we're going to get all of these characters back on screen, and it never happens. We never got Han, Luke, and Leia in one scene together. They saved Luke until the very end, and he doesn't even utter one word of dialogue. They kill off Han, effectively squashing the whole idea that we will ever see these characters. And if you like The Force Awakens, or if you don't like The Force Awakens, whatever side of the fence you stand on, you got to admit the fact that we didn't get those three characters back together after 35 years, and that's what a lot of people wanted to see. That's a crime. That's a crime committed against the Star Wars franchise and the fan community, and I'll stand by that. And I didn't have major issues with The Force Awakens when it came out, but that was one thing that bothered me. And also I wanted to see Luke. I waited to see Luke. He's the main character. He's the franchise character, and they left him to the Force, to The Last Jedi, and The Last Jedi was an abomination as far as what they did to his character. Do I find this movie more offensive than The Last Jedi? No, I don't. Only because I love Luke Skywalker so much, and I think what they did to him is it's indefensible. I think that's a complete disgrace, what they did to his character. I understand why people say this movie might be worse than The Last Jedi, because it does a lot of things collectively, and it's the whole entire movie, the sum of all those parts is greater than one specific instance. So I can understand why certain people are saying that. For me, the Last Jedi is, that's the black hole in this trilogy. It's a void. It's a complete cipher, and it's disruptive to the movies that came before it. And it lessens them. And it was completely disruptive to trying to do anything with this movie, because Rian Johnson threw out all of these plot threads or all of these narrative elements that were set up in The Force Awakens. JJ had to go back in and essentially do episode 8.5 and 9. I mean, there's moments in this movie where they completely do things that fly in the face of the decisions that Rian Johnson made in The Last Jedi. I mean, when Rey freaks out because she has dark side tendencies, and she finds out she's a Palpatine, and she goes back to Act 2, and she's burning up that Kylo Ren's TIE fighter, and she tells Luke, like, that's it, I'm gonna hide, I'm gonna do what you did, I have dark side tendencies, I'm gonna shut myself off from the Force. And and Luke, he looks and he's just like, yeah, I was wrong for doing that. And it's almost like saying, like, yeah, it's almost like Mark Hamill saying, like, yeah, they were wrong for handling my character that way. And that's, it feels like they're deliberately, like, winking at the crowd in a sense, saying, like, yeah, we recognize, like, these were bad decisions that were made in The Last Jedi. And sort of some of those things tried to rectify it, but this movie is hamstrung by that. It's hamstrung by several factors. One of them is trying to rectify the issues that people had with The Last Jedi. Another is trying to win a large portion of people back that are fans, that are turned off by Star Wars and what happened in that movie, and just this franchise overall as things were. Another thing that it's hamstrung by is the death of Carrie Fisher, and trying to bring her back in and cobble together some footage to put it into this movie, and to make it feel like it's part of the narrative. And I did some videos where we discuss, is this going to feel natural? What is this going to look like? Is it going to be distracting? And it was distracting. For me, it was distracting because I know that she's not there. I know that this is footage that they're using, that they shot for other movies. And while she's delivering her lines, I'm trying to figure out the context of where they pulled it from and who she was talking to deliver these lines that she's delivering to Rey on screen. Who was she initially delivering these lines to? Was it Harrison Ford? Was it a droid? Was it Mark Hamill? Like, who was she talking to? And even looking at it, like, it seems, like, look, the effects crew, they did the best they could with what they had, but it wasn't quite there, right? I mean, it just seemed like she wasn't fully there, and it just, again, it was just another thing that this movie tried to have Carrie Fisher in there. It tried to do so much. It tried to get so much right, and in the end, it just, everything is wrong. There's not a lot about this that's really great. If I could say anything that's good about the movie, is it looks pretty. It's shot very well. I mean, there's a lot of scenes that look great, but when you have a budget like $250 million plus, you better damn sure make this look beautiful on screen. I mean, this is Disney, they're the biggest entertainment company in the world, so they have the money to make this look like an amazing Star Wars production. I mean, that should never be in question. But it does look nice. It looks nice. I think it looks better than The Last Jedi. I think it's kind of on par with The Force Awakens, but it's like, it's bigger, and bigger isn't always better. Like, at the end, when there's so many ships, it's like they're throwing so much shit at the screen. Like, I mean, there's ships, there's Star Destroyers, a whole fleet of Star Destroyers, there's laser fire everywhere. Then Lando brings in more ships, and it's just like a million ships on screen all at once. There's fucking horses running around on the deck of a Star Destroyer. It's just like, what is going on? There's troopers fighting. There's a land war on top of the Star Destroyer. Palpatine shooting lightning in the sky. I mean, it's just, there's so much going on. It's almost like it's trying to confuse you into thinking that you're watching something better than it is, because it seems like it's so epic because you can't wrap your head around everything that's going on all at once. Jesus, I mean, what a fucking movie. And then we get to the end, and it's Rey. She's squaring off with Palpatine, and Palpatine is just like, again, he's not the best version of Palpatine we've seen. I mean, you want Palpatine to be able to he's kind of like in this floating, I don't know, like this chair, like this mech, this apparatus that he's strapped up to. I guess it's kind of like a life support device because he's so weak, and he's, I mean, Palpatine is a menacing figure, and Ian McDermott, he plays him so well. I mean, he knows his character, and it almost seems like this just isn't the best performance that we've seen out of Ian, and it's not really the best that they've used this character. He could have been better, and the fact that he's even there, it's just like he shouldn't be, right? But it's a Hail Mary pass to introduce a big bad in the 12th hour. Like, we got to do something, and what's going to bring the fans back? Oh, we'll bring Palpatine back. He's been pulling the strings all along, and it's just like, all right, whatever, because you got to tie it back into the Skywalker family somehow. And since you've killed all the Skywalkers off, who's left? You have Rey, who technically isn't even a Skywalker. You have Kylo Ren, who he's been Solo. I mean, he's got Skywalker blood in him, but he's a Skywalker Solo. So you have Palpatine, who's not nearly as interesting as he's been in other movies, and you have Rey going up against him, and Palpatine's got all of the Sith in him, and Rey's got all of the Jedi in him, and and it's just kind of like, it's not as compelling a final battle, the final act in the final movie of a 40-year saga, a 40-year cinematic saga that used to be the benchmark, like the high watermark standard for popcorn cinema, like franchise movies. And it's just, it ends up being a really underwhelming climax when it's all said and done. And then you have in the very end, you have you have Kylo Ren. He gets thrown into a ravine, but he ends up coming back, and Rey, she's essentially, she's dead, right? I mean, her eyes are open. She's, her mouth isn't agape, but she's motionless. So now Kylo Ren apparently understands how to use force healing to the point where he could bring somebody back to life. It's like everyone could just bring people back to life. Everyone just comes back alive. Palpatine's alive. Rey comes back alive. Kylo Ren comes back alive. Everyone just they just come back alive. But they couldn't bring Luke back alive, right? The one person we wanted to see on screen be a badass Jedi, they don't bring him back. Kylo Ren, he brings back Rey. And then apparently that drains his life force. But before that happens, all the Reylo fans, they get the big kiss that they've been waiting for all this time. They get this guy who's butchered all of these people and has killed his father right in front of Rey, and he's gone after his mother, and all of these things. And for some reason she's still attracted to him, right? She's attracted to Ben, not Kylo Ren. And they finally kiss. It finally happens after all this dicking around with the Force Skype. And the other thing, too, is like, how are these two still able to Force Skype? I thought that was something that Snoke, supposedly in The Last Jedi, it was him who was manipulating them the whole time, and he allowed them to have that. Because remember, Kylo Ren's like, how's this happening? Like, you wouldn't be able to do this. The energy it would take to project yourself like this would tear you apart. But now they're able to just do it. But anyway, they finally kiss. And I don't know what movie theaters you saw this in, guys, but the movie theater I was in, like half the audience just laughed. I mean, they just laughed at the whole entire kiss. One guy was just like, one guy yelled out, he was like, "Who approved this?" and then he just dies and fades away. And then people were just like, "What the fuck?" People were literally in the theater going, "What the fuck is going on right now?" I mean, it was really like, it was so ridiculous. I just laughed, and it wasn't a scene meant to be laughed at. And I mean, that just pretty much sums it all up. They tried to do something. They thought this was going to be a serious movie to close out this whole entire trilogy. They thought this whole trilogy was going to be taken seriously, and in the end, it's just a joke, and a lot of people are laughing at it. And it's a shame, because it could have been something a lot better than it ended up really being. One of the things that I was thinking as I was watching this movie was when we saw Rey and Finn and Poe on screen together as a group, as the new trio, interacting with each other. There was something there, right? There was some kind of chemistry, some kind of dynamic, but we never explored it really in the other movies. We didn't get all three of them together, and that should have been the middle movie, right? They should have had some kind of adventure together, and to build up, to make us care for them. And the other thing I thought about, I was watching it, was like, I just don't care enough about these characters to the point that when this movie comes to a conclusion, it's going to matter to me either way what happens to anybody. Like, I just don't care. The only characters I ended up caring about were the legacy characters. I cared about Lando Calrissian. I cared about Chewie. I cared about C-3PO and R2-D2. These were the characters that I was invested in. Seeing Luke Skywalker again. To me, that it's always going to pull at my heartstrings, and that's what they wanted. They wanted those nostalgia. They wanted the member berries. That's what they wanted, and they got it out of me, but not to the point where I walked out of the theater saying, "Well, that was a satisfying experience," because it just wasn't. I mean, it's just like they kind of just took things and plucked it out, and they threw it at you. I mean, even when they're on Act 2, and Luke raises his X-wing out of the ocean there, the X-wing that they, Chekhov's gun, they show that X-wing in The Last Jedi, and he should have done that. He should have raised that X-wing out of that ocean in The Last Jedi and flown to Crate to save the day in person. But no, they saved it for this moment here, and he's a Force ghost doing it. He catches the lightsaber, he lifts the X-Wing. Like, these Force ghosts now have all of these powers that they can use in the real world. Well, again, that flies in the face of what they've established. Force ghosts are then, when they pass on, they've always been considered as mentors. They pass along information and knowledge, and they can help guide you. They're a guiding light, but they can't really come and interact with you. They can't bonk you on the head like Yoda did to Luke in The Last Jedi, or summon lightning to, explode and burn up a tree filled with ancient Jedi texts, or catch lightsabers, or lift X-Wings. Because if that's the case, why weren't all of these Jedi Masters at the end to fight Palpatine? I mean, they could easily do that then. They're just sitting on the sidelines like a bunch of dicks saying, "Oh yeah, right, we're here with you, but why aren't you here? Are you here or are you not here? Like, are you somewhere else? Like, where are you?" They could be everywhere at any time. Then why not be there when the galaxy needed you the most, and the biggest threat that we've ever seen has come back, and he's going to he has potential to take over the whole entire universe once and for all and lead for 1,000 years. I mean, why would you just let Rey kind of try to handle this? I mean, it's just kind of bullshit. I mean, and then she picks up 2 lightsabers, and she can defeat Palpatine with 2 lightsabers. I mean, maybe if Mace Windu had an extra lightsaber, like, we wouldn't have gotten this far in the trilogy. I mean, who knows? But I don't know. It's just kind of like, it really is. I wanted it to be better than it was. I didn't think it was going to be anything more than it ended up being. And it's really, at the end of the day, we're probably going to get a lot of articles out of it. There's going to be a lot of content just based off of this trilogy, for the rest of our days. And I'm happy that it's over. It's done. They closed out this trilogy. Star Wars needs to go away. And if it's going to come back, because it's going to, Disney's not going to let this thing just wither on the vine and die off. So it will be back one day. You can only hope that when they do finally bring it back, maybe the powers that be over at Lucasfilm, there'll be a change of the guard. Kathleen Kennedy will be out of there. Maybe Filoni will rise through the ranks with Jon Favreau in tow, and Lucas will be back in some capacity, helping as an advisor, as a consultant, and things will look better. The Mandalorian is a good step in the right direction. I really, really have enjoyed that show, even with the side episodes where the main plot didn't really go anywhere. They still had value and entertainment, and even that show, when it does the winks and the nods and the fan service, I don't mind it as much, because you can see where they're going with the rest of that show. That it's just they're trying to do something that pays respect to the mythology, and kind of create their own path along the way. But always say, hey man, I think when they nod and they wink, they're doing it, and it comes from a place of love, not desperation. And that's what we have here with this movie. It's desperate. It's desperate to win everybody's favor back, and you can see right through it. So let it go away for a while. This trilogy is over. This complete fucking disaster of a trilogy. This a total letdown. What a shame. What a waste of potential. This has all been, squandered. You squandered that original cast. And that's it. We'll never get them back. The only thing we could possibly hope for is down the road where we have this deep fake technology where we can get actors in there and they use it to place the likenesses of the original cast members, and maybe they can go back and do the Thrawn trilogy, and let that be the official canon trilogy, and they decanonize this, because it's just this was a waste. It really was. It was a shame, and it was a lost opportunity to really do something special. And I think a lot of it was just you get the franchise and it's a license to print money and slap Star Wars on it. And if this franchise has proven anything, it's that's not all there really is to it. And look, Lucas himself, those prequel movies, they weren't all fantastic. I love Revenge of the Sith. The Phantom Menace and the Clone Wars leave a lot to be desired, although I do like a lot of parts of those movies. Overall, I'm not the biggest fan, but I think when Star Wars is good, we'll embrace good Star Wars, and we'll get on there and we'll say that we like it, and we'll defend it. When it's bad, you're going to hear about it, and that's coming from a place because we're passionate about it, and we love it, and we want to see it do well. If we don't have the ability to get in there and make these stories ourselves, we want to see the stories that are presented to us be something of a high quality or a standard that we've come to expect over the years from this franchise, that has given us so much joy that we buy the games and we buy the toys and we buy the merchandise and everything that goes along with it. And Star Wars fans will support if the product that you're putting out respects the source material and doesn't treat the fans like they're pieces of garbage when they object to the things that you're trying to serve them up. If they know as fans that it's not the best that it could be, or there's something else that you're trying to squeeze in there as far as an agenda or politics or anything like that is concerned, we don't want that. At the end of the day, Star Wars is escapism at its best, at its finest. That's what it was with the original trilogy, and there was moments of that as well with the prequels and the Clone Wars show, all great stuff, and we're seeing it again finally with shows like The Mandalorian, hopefully the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. So right now, the Star Wars cinematic world, it's dead. It's dead. We don't know what's going on with it. And we can only hope that when something finally does come back to the theaters, that it's really good. It's quality Star Wars, and it's not going down like a weird path. We got Kevin Feige, who seems to be a big fan of Brie Larson. So I don't want to see Brie Larson as Ahsoka in an Ahsoka movie. I really don't. I think that would be, man, that would light the internet up on fire if that happened, and I don't want to see that. So I hope that's not the direction that they end up going. And if Kevin Feige does something, I hope he just tries to do something new and original and create characters of his own. But we'll see what happens in a few years when Star Wars does finally make its return to the theaters. Until that time, Star Wars television is where it's at right now on Disney Plus. So anyway, guys, I wish I could say better things about the Rise of Skywalker, but we kind of all knew where it was going. The leaks were all true. The people who said that they weren't, They tried to smear people who were reporting the rumors. Those people who tried to smear, they ended up being wrong, and the people who reported the rumors ended up being validated. So, good for them. Hail Doomcock. Doomcock was right. You know what? I wish I could be here right now saying something different, but I did turn my brain off and I watched the movie and I enjoyed parts of it. Some of the humor I thought was funny when 3PO got his mind wiped and then he was reintroducing himself to everyone. I like that little bit that they put in there. There was no need to give him his memory back, but whatever. But there was some parts that did make me laugh. But, other than that, the movie is just a mess. It undermines a lot of stuff that came before it. And should you go see it? If you didn't like The Force Awakens and you hated The Last Jedi, you have no need to see this. There's absolutely no need whatsoever. If you liked The Force Awakens, you were kind of okay with The Last Jedi, and you're like a casual fan, then go ahead, go check it out. If you're a Rey fan, this movie is for you. If you're a Reylo fan, you'll get your wish in the end. But for somebody like me, I could give a fuck about that. I just want to see a good Star Wars movie. That other bullshit, that Twilight stuff, it has no purpose in my movies. I don't want to see it there. So anyway, guys, did you see The Rise of Skywalker? If you did, what'd you think? Let me know down below. If this is your first time here, please feel free to comment, like, subscribe. Always like to have new subscribers here. I do my best to try to interact with people. Unless you're a douchebag, then I just let your comment fade away into the abyss. But the cool people, I've definitely tried to make it a point to get back to you. And for the assholes that were coming here and telling me that Snoke created Rey, well, you were wrong, weren't you, dipshit? So anyway, guys, I will talk to you sometime soon. As always, be happy, be safe, be healthy. Thank you for watching. Have a great night. Bye-bye.